let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Neither of us wanted Billy Eppler a few weeks ago when we were talking about him, and the more and more research that I've done about Billy Eppler, the less and less I'm getting excited about him. I mean, there's one saving grace, and it's that Artie Moreno was his owner, and Artie Moreno is batshit crazy and basically said you have to do this and this and handcuffed him a little bit. But even then, there are some really glaring issues with Billy Eppler.
That's your saving grace? I thought your saving grace would be that he's best friends with David Stearns.
Oh, yeah, that too. That's a saving grace. But
that's the actual saving grace here.
Even then, that is really that's a pipe dream at the end of the day.
I guess. He's also best friends with Brian Cashman, who I've also said is probably going to be very close to this job next offseason. But then we'll worry about the offseason of 2022 when the time comes. Yeah. I'm sure that'll be a big story in and of itself. But Mark and I have done a lot of research here about Billy Eppler's past year for the listeners at home, and we found some real nuggets that the front offices he were a part of were not just bad, but like kind of shockingly bad.
He really hasn't been associated with winning ever since he's gotten roles of importance. He was with the Yankees in 2009 when they won that World Series, but he was credited for signing guys in the past like Andrew Jones, like Freddie Garcia, like Bartolo Colon for the Yankees, none of which who helped these teams win. And those were some bad Yankees teams. I mean, 2012 to 2014 when he was his assistant GM they still were better than the Mets, but they were some of the worst Yankee teams that you can think of. Like that was a bad decade for the Yankees.
That was probably the worst 3-year stretch for the Yankees in anybody's lifetime who's listening to this podcast. That was the first time in 20 years the Yankees missed the postseason in back-to-back seasons. In 2013 when they were struggling, or maybe that's 2012? No, that was 2013. 2012, the Yankees beat the Orioles in the divisional series, and they got swept by the Tigers. So that year, first year Billy Eppler was a general manager of the Yankees, they were okay. 2013, the Yankees were kind of meandering all season long. I think Jeter and A-Rod were both hurt. And instead of like selling and picking up prospects that the Yankees wound up doing in a few years after Billy Eppler left, during a bad season, they actually acquired Alfonso Soriano.
I was just about to go through that roster of the 2014 Yankees.
Something that Brian Cashman said he was not supportive of doing. So if the real GM wasn't supportive of it, it seems like someone went over somebody's head and talked to the assistant general manager and said, let's get a Yankee back in town. That was a bad move. And then, again, 2014, the Yankees just mired in being a bad team for the entire season, and they continued to acquire at the trade deadline rather than break down in a team that had no business winning.
Yeah, some of the guys that were on this roster, Brian Roberts at age 36, put up a strong 659 OPS. Yeah,
$2 million. What are you going to do?
You had Ichiro, who was 40 years old, who got 400 at-bats that year. You have Carlos Beltran, who was 38 years old, who got 400 at-bats. Alfonso Soriano got 225. Some other names to throw out there. What?
Well, in between those two seasons, the Yankees gave the famous contract to Jacoby Ellsbury.
Yes, the Jacoby
Billy
Ellsbury.
Eppler was part of that negotiation.
He was a part of that negotiation. I mean, just the names that are on here.
Can you even call that a negotiation, or would you just call that an absolute, I don't even know what the word is, an absolute bum rush?
He got fucked.
I want to shake all Jacoby Ellsbury's agents' hands. That was one of the greatest negotiations in history of negotiations.
Truly a swindle at its finest, and that happened with Billy Eppler in a role of power.
And not saying that he was the one who did that. We're not blaming Billy Eppler for the Jacoby Ellsbury contract, but he was sitting at the table. He didn't say no.
He definitely wasn't able to stop it. And to me, that's a little scary.
But like most white guys do in baseball, Billy Eppler was able to fail upward and was hired to be the Generals' general manager in 2015. 2015 was a famous mess for the Los Angeles Angels because that was one of the last winning seasons they actually enjoyed. But Mike Scioscia walked into Artie Moreno's office and pointed to Jerry Dipoto and said, it's either me or him. And if we do analytics, it's going to be him. And they fired Jerry Dipoto.
Mike Scioscia is the biggest anti-analytic guy I've ever heard about. He used to throw people out of the locker rooms, reporters, if you mentioned anything that wasn't like batting average, RBIs. He was like, get out of here. I don't want to hear it.
And Jerry Dipoto's gone on to be something like a superstar, working with the Mariners ever since. So that was a bad move by Artie Moreno, but whatever. Billy Eppler has the job. And those Angels teams from 2015 to 2020 are some of the most chaotic baseball rosters that have ever been assembled. And of course, he was a little hamstrung. He had to deal with massive contracts that were given to Albert Pujols, Josh Hamilton, I think C.J. Wilson was
Dan
part
Aaron,
of that core.
I think, was still...
Yeah, there were some bad contracts there for sure, but sometimes when life gives you lemons, you have to make lemonade. Like, life gave Billy Eppler lemons, and he gave us back lemons. Like, it really is it. Like, there were like a lot of guys in the bottom of these rosters that wound up being massive contributors later in their careers that Billy Eppler said he wanted no business as a part of this team. Like, they got nothing out of G-Man Choi and CJ Crone. They were guys who just were shuffled up in town between AAA Salt Lake and eventually just let go for nothing. They DFA'd Kirby Yates when he was bouncing around as a reliever, which is hilarious. He traded for a 29-year-old Justin Upton, was tricked by some success, and then gave a 30-year-old Justin Upton 5 years for $105 million. Like, this is not winning moves. These are not winning moves.
No, there was not a whole lot of winning going on in Los Angeles. I mean, you think about the talent that they had, and one of the guys that you always think of is Mike Trout. And they did nothing.
But that was it. There was no. I don't want to say there was other talent in this team.
That's
fair. There wasn't a lot to work with, but Billy Eppler really found a way to never ever improve at all, even slightly.
It seemed like Billy Eppler really fell in love with guys who were towards the tail end of their prime. He's like, oh God, I'd love to give you 6 or 7 years and pay you a lot of money to be old. Like, that's what I'm so into, paying you after you're 30.
They had La Stella on those teams. Who's some other position players those Angels teams had? I think they gave Andrelton Simmons a bag.
They did give Andrelton Simmons the bag. I mean,
I don't know if that was Eppler, though. That might have been.
No, it was him.
He hired Brad Ausmus to be the special assistant to himself in 2017.
Right. There's very few managers I hate. I hate Brad Ausmus.
Well, you better get used to it because he's going to manage the Mets this season.
What a time to be a Mets fan.
Also, Billy Eppler was a part of the Angels organization as they underwent an actual narcotics scandal.
Yeah, that was a little somber note there.
Definitely. He hired Mickey Callaway, which him being a sexual predator was, as Ken Rosenthal and Britt Gurley put it last year, the worst kept secret in baseball. And Billy Eppler hired him.
That's the guy I want.
Yeah, that's the guy I want. And then, we're going to throw out some roster names right now, but pitching especially. The pitching in those Billy Eppler years for the Angels was actual nonsense. Garrett Richards was starting every opening day. Matt Schumacher, Nick Tropeano, Parker Bridwell, Jarrett Parker. These names are absolutely insane.
I got a few for you. How about Ricky Nolasco at 34 years old?
Ricky Nolasco, my God. Remember Justin Bohr?
Yeah.
He got 500 at-bats a year for these teams. Oh. As they let CJ Cron and G-Man Choi go.
God, these teams were so bad. He tried to give Andrew Bailey another shot, the guy who hadn't been able to pitch in 6 years. He brought around Brendan Ryan everywhere he's ever been. He loves Brendan Ryan. I'm sure he'll find his way into the front office somehow with the Mets. He just, doesn't make good moves. Danny Espinosa, did you mention him?
No, it's a Tommy La Stella, so yeah, kind of.
Danny Espinosa had a real strong 500 OPS in 90 games there. He had a knack for finding just garbage.
Now, these were consistently the dumbest rosters in baseball for 5 years. You would look at the Angels and be like, who the fuck is playing third base for the Angels? Every single year, every single night, every single summer from 2015 through 2020, without fail, until they signed Rendon, because I was just specifically talking about third base, but...
Eppler didn't want Rendon.
Really? Okay.
Eppler did not want Rendon. Artie Moreno's like, we're getting Anthony Rendon because I need to know who my third baseman is.
It's just chaos. And if I wanted to give Eppler one small victory, their player development did slightly improve under him. They went from having clearly one of the worst farm systems in baseball to somewhere in the 20s.
Which is still horrible.
That's something. He drafted Joe Adell, Brandon Marsh, and Griff Canning, guys who made the major leagues and who look like they might be okay players. I'll take that, I guess.
Yeah. The thing that I at least give them the most credit for is Ohtani, because no one really had the Angels as a team pegged for Ohtani, and Ohtani ended up there. And that could be something that we could take as a positive for the Mets, because Seiya Suzuki, while he's not going to be Shohei Ohtani, is the next big thing coming out of Japan, and he's due to post any day now. So maybe Billy Eppler has a little hand up in international negotiations, which the Mets have been notoriously horrible at.
I think just being in California gives you a leg up in international negotiations. Being on the West Coast and being a 4-hour flight to Japan rather than being in New York and having an 11-hour, 12-hour, 13-hour flight back and forth to Japan.
I don't think you know how far Japan is.
I'm taking a guess.
It is not 4 hours from California.
Flight? How long's a flight from Japan to Los Angeles?
I'm looking it up right now. I'm pretty sure it's close to 10.
No.
4 hours. I'm going to laugh. It is 10-hour flight.
So, even better. It's 17 to get back to New York.
Yeah, I mean, they're closer. By all means, it is closer.
Japan? That's an easy one.
4 hours. That's how long it takes to get from New York to Arizona.
I've never been to Asia.
Anyway, back to Billy Eppler after we just forgot how far away Japan is.
What can you do?
You're tired. You had a red eye.
Red eye, yeah.
Your flight from Utah to New York was 4 hours today.
You're right. I have a big kickball playoff game at 6:30 tonight.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy is right. But bottom line, these teams that Eppler had high-ranking roles with, there was one series victory in the playoffs, and it was over Buck Showalter and the Orioles.
Who could also be a manager of this Mets team.
I give that no credit whatsoever to that. Like, the only really thing I'm going to pull from this is that, well, two things. One, him and David Stearns are best friends. And the two, the Mets are beefing up their analytics department in such a way that it seems like we could possibly even insulate Billy Eppler from all the baseball decisions, which would be great.
Yeah, I mean, like, this, it sounds so disrespectful, but, like, boy, I don't feel great giving him the keys to my car.
There's no juice here.
I'm not sure if he has a license. I'm really not sure how he ever got one. I'm not sure who you took the test with, but he has failed every single test given, and he's getting another job. I want to. I'm not all done with Steve Cohen yet. That was a lot of like stuttering there because I'm thinking of my words really carefully here. I'm not done with Steve, but boy, oh boy, it feels like a lot of the old same stuff that we had with the Wilpons. Guys who are not qualified or have either failed at the job that they have, and you're like, we'll give you another shot. Try it with us. It could be different.
It just feels like there's going to be a boys club again. And, like, boys clubs have won World Series. Theo Epstein has won 2 World Series as a member of various boys clubs. It seems like those Nationals front offices were boys clubs. But this just feels like frat house vibes right now. And also, like, being the richest owner in baseball, not shelling out a few extra $1 million for Noah Syndergaard. Even though he may not have had an opportunity to. That's just also a knock on the front office himself for not being aware this was happening.
Yep, you got to take it right out under your nose. That can't happen. That can't happen when he's your guy. He was on the team. You can't let that happen. And then adding in this guy, Billy Eppler, who I hope he proves me wrong.
This guy, Billy Eppler.
I hope he proves us both wrong. I hope we look like idiots and you can come back to episode number 61 of the Mets'd podcast and go, you morons, you didn't believe in Billy. I will happily turn the other cheek and get right on board, but I am not feeling great right now.
Hey, there'd be nothing better than me eating these words. Like, I would be so thrilled if now Billy Eppler makes all these cunning, attractive contract offers right now, and we have this incredible team of value and talent and strength, but I'd like to see that happen before. And again, the one thing that the Mets fans can hang their hats on this offseason is that we're really building up this analytics department. We're hiring tons of new people there. We're going to be up to about 30 by the end of the offseason, and we're acquiring talent from an employee standpoint in creative ways, saying that we just kind of want people who know about data, know about statistical modeling, all the things that the best organizations in baseball do when they beef up their analytics staff. You kind of want some people to know about baseball, but it's kind of helpful to have some people who don't, so there's no biases, there's fresh perspectives, but for some reason, some people didn't think that was that good of an idea, and a lot of people found a reason to jump on the Mets for that.